Welcome to our webinar. I'm Laurie Riminik, and I'm with Maharishi Vastu Office of North America. And we're very pleased to have you join us today from around the world. Jon Lipman, the National Director of Vastu for North America and the Caribbean, will be speaking today about how Maharishi Vastu makes a true wellness home.
At a time when we're all focused on staying healthy, it's natural to ask whether homes can create wellness, and not simply from their materials or from their air quality, although those are, of course, very important, but through the actual form of the building itself. Well, the ancient science of Vastu is key to creating buildings for improved health and clearer thinking and enhanced quality of life. That is a wellness home. Maharishi Vastu designed the Vedic system of architecture and planning as it was revived by the renowned Vedic sage Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, integrates the most life-supporting laws of nature into a home. In Maharishi Vastu design, natural law and architectural elements provide a profound integration between the built environment and nature. And this enhances our physical and mental health, our family relations, work, and even the growth of spirituality. We'll go more deeply into this in a minute, but first, from the Vedic knowledge in general, and from Maharishi Ayurveda, which is the Vedic holistic healthcare system in particular, we learn that in a time of potential environmental stress, the key things to do, above all, are to stay rested, early to bed. And if you're confined to your home, consider doing longer meditation programs, yoga asanas, and pranayama. Exercise according to your constitution. Eat properly at the right times of the day, and of course, fresh cooked food. Avoid fixating on worrying subjects, and sip hot or warm water periodically. I've just described what are key elements of a healthful lifestyle, and they're especially important at a time when the physiology needs to maintain its greatest vigor. The conventional architecture world is identifying a suite of construction practices that support health. Two leading institutions in this regard. The conventional architecture world is identifying a suite of construction practices that support health. Two leading institutions in this regard are, first, the International Well Building Institute, and we see its logo. Its goal is to raise awareness, develop thought leadership, and provide resources to promote design strategies that elevate every dimension of wellness. And it looks specifically at how to have cleaner, more pure air inside of buildings, how to have ideal water, how to eat nourishing food, how to have ideal light inside of buildings, prompts that buildings can give us to move sufficiently, ideal thermal comfort, a quiet environment using non-toxic materials, technologies and modalities that will keep the mind still, and connections to our community. So these are all areas that the International Well Building Institute has developed a series of specific strategies in order to increase. And a new initiative of its sponsor, which is Delos, is to improve air quality and sanitize surfaces in healthcare and elderly facilities, because they, of course, house our most vulnerable citizens, and this is a very good thing. And all of these things are very harmonious with Maharishi Vastu, and Delos and the International Well Building Institute pursue a rigorous science-based selection process for elements to integrate into a well building. And so we, who rely primarily on the ancient Vedic knowledge, can simply endorse contemporary modalities such as this, which are going through contemporary research to find out what adjustments to construction in the 21st century will promote health. The two approaches are very synergistic. And we are in very early discussions with this organization regarding learning from each other. And the second international organization that I want to highlight right now is the Global Wellness Institute's Wellness Architecture Initiative. It defines wellness architecture as the art and science behind designing the built environment to enhance human and planetary health and well-being, because it recognizes that humans and nature are intrinsically tied. And so its mission is to promote strategies that simultaneously and synergistically enhance human and planetary well-being. Very laudable goals. And so the Global Wellness Institute's Architecture Initiative is identifying topics that need to be in the spotlight because the building industry has power to be a key influencer on human and planetary wellness. And it has also compiled a list of resources to dealing with standards and practices that will implement design principles that are known to increase human health and well-being. And the leaders of this initiative also are colleagues of ours with whom we have begun collaborating. And so we salute both of these organizations and look forward to vigorous long-term collaboration. Let us consider how Maharishi Vastu construction goes even beyond these important and well-established healthy living elements, such as fresh air and non-toxic materials, broad spectrum and natural light, etc. How on a subtle level, a Maharishi Vastu home sets up the conditions for a person to have the clarity of mind, the energy that allows them naturally and spontaneously to lead a healthy life, to make the right choices for their health 1,000 times a day. And where does this come from? It comes from the Vastu home being an interface with the laws of the natural world, because the profoundly deep elements of Maharishi Vastu architecture are actually the thing that allows the connection between the individual dweller and the laws of the natural world, the cosmos. And in so doing, they neutralize the interference that is created by most homes' structures. Well, how do they do this? Well, we've discussed this before, and we will again in a later webinar unpack this in some detail. But now briefly, we'll simply say, as a short summary, that the Earth is a sphere that rotates from west to east. Therefore, the sun, which is the most powerful influence of natural law on the Earth, passes overhead from east to west. And this means that if we and our homes are oriented to the east, they are oriented towards the harmonizing and life-giving influence of the sun, that is towards natural law. Now we learn from Vastu, and science is helping us to understand this objectively, that therefore aligning the walls of our homes with the 4 cardinal directions and facing the homes ideally east, and sleeping and working with our bodies oriented in the right directions promotes a more powerfully functioning mind and avoids reductions in physical and mental health that can come when the orientation of the house, the walls of the house, and our own orientation in major activities are not aligned with the passage of the cosmic objects such as the sun overhead from east to west. So this is one of the elements that Vastu adds to healthy building, but Vastu is more than the sum of right orientation, room placement, materials, proportions, and siting. And a true story conveys this best. A New Zealand family wrote to us, "Our funds were really meager. but somehow we went ahead and bought an acre of land in the Southern Alps of New Zealand and borrowed from the bank to build a small one-cabin photo, which we see on the screen. Very, very small, though, with a completely stunning backdrop. And the large black object that you see on the right is the cistern in which they store all their drinking water. They consulted Maharishi Vastu architects and built using our guidelines to achieve maximum good fortune. Continuing with the quote, "We enjoyed building it and enjoyed living in our little cabin, but before too long we realized that we needed to be in a bigger home. So reluctantly, we sold our cabin to a young man from the locality and began making our plans to build a larger Maharishi Vastu home," which they did successfully do. They continue, "We were much dismayed when the buyer took possession of the house, moved in with crates of beer and packets of cigarettes, and then somewhat brusquely wished us on our way." A year later, we visited our former cabin. The new owner rushed out to greet us. He was visibly changed, almost a different person. He looked healthy and happy. He waxed lyrically concerning the virtues of the little cabin. He recounted his experiences of support of nature since moving in and the ease with which he had found ample work in a time of recession. What we're talking about here is health in this webinar, but this experience draws out that the effects of living in perfect Vastu are holistic. And that means that we cannot separate Vastu's nourishing influence on our health from its influence on all aspects of living, including spontaneously moving in the direction of greater evolution, as was certainly seen in the new occupant of that New Zealand cabin. And still, we know that Maharishi Vastu living specifically supports and promotes good health, mental and physical. The medical data, which we've covered in another webinar, begins to document this quite enticingly and convincingly, and this is also people's experiences. We can say Vastu provides protective and influences, and its effects have been rigorously measured in a worldwide survey of the occupants of Maharishi Vastu homes, which found that the occupants attribute the following results to living in Vastu. 80% report improved mental health. 70% report improved physical health. 60% report improved sleep, which is so important for good health. And 85% report less stress. These effects are very similar to the measured effects of practicing the transcendental meditation technique twice a day. And these two pure ancient Vedic technologies, along with Maharishi Ayurveda, are highly complementary and are powerful keys to establishing and maintaining our very best health. In the famous 40-year Harvard nurses study on 70,000 women, over 8 years, it was found that the most optimistic women had a 38% lower chance of dying from respiratory disease and a 52% lower risk of dying from infection than its least optimistic women. So optimism appears to be strongly correlated with good health. And living in Vastu appears to be an optimism generating technique. Occupants report, and these quotes are selected almost at random from among our many, many clients. And I'll read just a series of quotes now. "I feel protected and contented. There's a great feeling of protection and security from my house. I feel happy and content. There's an immediate sense of calm and peace on entering the home. Another experience, we feel protected and nourished." Another writes, "The same stress remains. I'm able to withstand it through living in Vastu and would not live in a non-Vastu home." Another writes, the house feels like a protective bubble from the stress of the outside world. It's a haven of peace and harmony that visitors can feel. Having been through a tiny bit of the data and the reality of what Vastu is like, I'd like to reframe what Vedic technologies, including Vastu, accomplish in our life. In one word, the word is balance. Balance of yourself with your own body, mind, and spirit. Balance of yourself with all relationships in the family. Balance of yourself with the home, with the environment. Balance of yourself with the sun, the moon, the stars, the constellations. Balance of yourself with nature, mankind, cosmos, time, and space. Balance of yourself with all-pervading intelligence or the Almighty. When one is in balance, life simply floats in harmony effortlessly. Until then, I wish that you stay safe and healthy during this time. I hope this information is helpful, and I look forward to connecting with you again. You can always reach us on our website, maharishivastu.org, and email us at info@maharishivastu.org.
Hi, okay, John, let's see here. We have some questions. We have a question. During a webinar in September, you said that the Meissner effect and accessibility to negative influences can be spoken of in relationship to a village or city where all buildings are built according to the principles of Maharishi Vastu. But we don't talk about this in relation to a separate house. Could you explain why?
We have the Meissner effect, and here I'm going to give a 1-minute physics lesson where we have a structure composed of elements. This is a phenomenon which occurs on different levels of the physical world, where when the elements of a structure are aligned with each other, the structure becomes more invincible and repels various negative outside influences. The Meissner effect refers specifically to what happens to iron when it is supercooled. Normally, iron is vulnerable to a magnetic field which passes right through it. However, if you supercool a piece of iron, the elements of it become aligned with each other. And once they are, a magnetic field will not penetrate it. It remains invincible. And this phenomenon that we see in various areas of physics, of the physical world, we understand to be an analog to what happens when we build a collection of Maharishi Vastu homes in one locale, making a community, because then that community is composed of aligned elements, and therefore the whole community, by extension from the Meissner effect, will become more coherent, also repelling negative external influences. So this, in short, is what the parallel to the Meissner effect is. And therefore we speak of it when we're describing the influence of Maharishi Vastu cities rather than the influence of Maharishi Vastu homes.
All right. And then another question. In modern architecture, there is a tendency to create futuristic projects of garden cities made of concrete and glass, floating cities, underwater cities, and so on. And this is presented as the development of green architecture. Is this consistent with the principles of Maharishi Vastu?
Well, to give a full answer, we'd have to devote 20 minutes because you rattled off several different characteristics of different kinds of contemporary buildings. Some of them are completely in harmony with Maharishi Vastu. Others, not so much. An underwater dwelling, well, will it really get the full influence of the rising sun? Probably not. A building which is shaped very curvaceously or in a kind of chaotic shape, footprint, as in, say, a deconstructivist building, will not have its walls aligned with the cardinal directions. And therefore, those walls will serve as kind of localized interference generators on the coherence, the connection between our individual and cosmic intelligence. But other elements of modernism are perfectly fine, and we could show you lots of photographs of contemporary modernist Maharishi Vastu homes.
Okay, fantastic. All right, well, that actually I think takes care of it all. We're all set, and we want to thank you for joining us. We will be posting this webinar on Facebook in the next couple of days, and we look forward to seeing you. Unless, John, do you have anything further that you'd like to talk about? Then I think we're all good, and we very much look forward to speaking with you in the future. Have a great day.